Are we, mate? All right.
Good. Feeling good.
Excellent, man. What's been happening?
Been up to a lot. I mean, pandemic for me has been really good in terms of kind of selling stuff and getting commissions.
Getting stuff done.
Get loads of commissions. So I've been kind of non-stop since the start of the pandemic. Slowed down a bit now because everybody's going to be skint. But
yeah.
but I'm working on a lot of things. Been working on a series of paintings over the last 2 years about the pandemic, about Corona, Loving the Time of Corona, it's called. So it's just about how people and how I work my way through it, and how
Is
people.
that a series of paintings?
Yeah. So it's I think about 9 paintings in at the moment, and that'll continue until it gets to its natural end, basically.
Yeah. So when you do something like that, you don't have a pre-planned run kind of thing. You're doing it as you feel.
Not this one. Usually I do when I'm doing a series of paintings. I have a story, definite story, and I take that story to the end. I might go off on a tangent.
Yeah.
Several tangents, several times. But I have a definite story, and I know what's going to happen.
So that could be your story could be potentially over the course of 5 paintings. 10
5 paintings, 10 paintings. Sometimes I'll start. I think I'll do 3 paintings, but it always ends up being like 7 or 8, 9.
Yeah, that's paintings. Cool. That's very much like the songwriting. I can relate to the songwriting thing there, because it's like you're taking a topic and then you're writing a narrative on it. It's not just a one and done kind of thing, No, that's cool, man. That's
so the ones I'm doing at the moment about the pandemic it was completely the opposite way around. I just thought I'd start painting paintings about the way I'm feeling and about the way I'm feeling about the pandemic and anxiety, fear and all that stuff, and work my way through. So it's become a story through it. But I didn't start off with a story. I just started off with, how am I going to react to this in my paintings? So the paintings at the start to the end are completely different. So
is the narrative, does it have characters? The type of story, is it that detailed?
It started off with just no characters at all. It's about just pure emotions about how you're feeling about the fear, anxiety, apprehension, all
stream of consciousness, almost. Yeah,
that was all coming out, and then developed from that was certain characters, and then a story came from that. So now I'm kind of working on that story. And I don't know where that's going yet.
Talk about that stuff, or is it something you would rather not talk about?
No, it's fine.
Please tell us about it.
I mean, right at the start of the pandemic, everybody was kind of in fear and didn't know what was going on. I had the anxiety of a wife and a stepdaughter who are both on the front line. So because nobody knew what was going to happen, what it was, how it was going to affect everybody, and she was having to go to work, they're both having to go to work, then it was really scary. It was scary for me.
Sure,
and you're kind of powerless because you're stuck, you can't do anything practically about it.
Totally.
So I thought, well, I'll try to help myself by kind of putting everything, all the feelings and emotions I was having down on canvas. And the first one I did, it was a kind of crazy looking thing. It was kind of monsters in space, and it was almost into the sci-fi scene. It was very claustrophobic and big monsters, big teeth and eyes, and
I seen the one with the kind of bigger
eyes. So that's what kind of come out, and then I started. Then I did a couple more like that. Then I started to think, well, how do we? When I started to come out of that kind of fear and that apprehension, when that kind of dissipated, because it did pretty quickly. When you realise, right, okay, if things are going to be all right. My wife's not going to get virus and die, and my stepdaughter's not. They're careful, blah blah blah. And so I started to think, well, what else could I think, is coming out of this? And then I just thought about this story of people that were coming closer to each other, relationships that were getting closer or further away because of the pandemic, and that's what was happening in real life. And so that was my kind of start point.
That's great. I experienced both, so I understand that totally.
So then it kind of grew arms and legs from there. So then I kind of thought about, right, how do I think about making this into a story now that I don't feel afraid, don't feel anxious about it. Now I'll think about some characters in the story, and I come up with one character called Daedon, which is kind of derived from Adonis.
Right.
And he's there to save the world, and he's there to save the world, but he's an arrogant bastard at the same time. So he's loving saving the world, and he's having a great time, and he's loving being the hero. So I developed that character more and more and more, and I developed a nemesis to him. So there was another character who was basically the virus.
Right.
And this was a kind of like police state guy who's hanging out at a bar called The Boar, and we'd always see him there, and he'd always be kind of on his case and follow him about. And so the story's
cool.
now developing from that. So this is going to this kind of fight of these two nemesis, kind of following each other about. So it's
that's super interesting, man. So like, are you in that kind of situation? Are you perceiving something that you're basing these characters on? Like, is it like
It's basically it's basing it on
the collective fear
it's
of
basing it
people,
on
or?
Adonis is the fear.
Yeah.
That fear that's turned into this kind of arrogance and this kind of well, no, I'm not going to be frustrated by this. I'm not going to be stopped by this. I'm not going to be,
which we did see quite a lot of.
I'm not going to let it control my life, which is I think where a lot of people got. We started off with that fear, and we got to a point where fuck this. It's not going to control our lives. We're going to make this be part of our lives, and we're just going to say, sod it. You're not ruling me. And that came out in a lot of ways. A lot of different ways for people.
Sure,
some people come out with crazy stuff,
Yeah. No, totally, man. Like there's a lot of angles to discuss when it comes to us, and like it definitely manifested in very different ways with very different people.
Yeah, and it was really interesting to see, how people in society kind of split into all these wee factions, but there was just hundreds of these wee factions. It wasn't like I'm sticking by the rules or I'm not.
Yeah,
there was all a myriad of different reasons why people weren't sticking to the rules, and then different reasons why people were sticking to the rules or doing it in different ways. And it was fascinating for me to watch. And I was fine because I had my studio at home, so I'm sitting at home just painting and doing commissions, and I'm perfectly safe. But it was quite funny to quite interesting to watch what's happening to different people. And then I was watching what was happening to my own relationships with my own family, my friends, particularly my friends, and finding out who your true friends were, and who the people you could lean on, who the people that were going to be there for you, who the people were and not that I had friends that didn't become, it became strange, but just seeing how close.
Totally, I didn't really lose any friends either, but I certainly did see other people like falling out over opinions about whether it was a conspiracy or whether they should have a mask on or whatever angle it was. But you definitely saw a lot of friction and a lot of like pent up anger as well, like coming out in these kind of arguments. So that's why I was curious if that was like a representation, do you know what I mean, of something you had seen. Totally. But please continue.
So it's still developing. That's kind of where I'm at with the story. So it's still developing from these two people, and the kind of the virus has now become this kind of monster, which has almost become part of us, almost become totally ingrained in us. So some of my latest paintings, it's kind of almost caressing and being friendly and moving us along and pointing us in different directions, which is what's happened to me. I've been pointed in several different directions because of the pandemic. I've started doing things like working in the community in a slight way, like mentoring young artists in the kind of Balloch and Alexandria area. Right. Getting involved with some kind of some of the kind of art groups and community groups that are in Balloch and the Vale as well, like Clydesiders and Clifftop projects, things like that. Man, something amazing, I want to do a lot more of.
I don't know much about that, but please let people know about these things.
Clifftop project was a really good one because it was basically getting in touch with young people, and they had a grant to give young people money and kind of mentor them into with older artists to try and kind of steer them in the right direction. I'm talking about kind of young people between kind of 14 and 18 years old.
That age where you start to kind of go awry, you know what I mean?
So it was like getting them to benefit from experiences of more experienced artists like myself. So that's something that I never thought I would do. People always ask me in the past, would you like to do teaching or things like that? I'm like, no, never. I'd be rubbish at it. I thought. Totally. Yeah. But I found, doing this mentoring, it was easy and gentle because it was like doing it at the person's own pace, and it wasn't like I'm telling you what to do. I'm like, what do you want to do? I can point you in lots of directions.
Be the kind of tutor to people that we maybe saw in the past and didn't appreciate. Do you know what I mean? Like a different kind of.
Not saying this is what you should do. This is what you shouldn't do. It's like that. What do you want to do? What pace do you want to do it at? And I'll have
let's focus on that.
10 different directions to suggest to you without saying you should do any of them. It's whatever you feel comfortable with. And I think that's really important. Especially the last couple of years, there's been so many more people getting into the arts, I think, because I've had all this spare time. Yeah,
it certainly did. It had its positives and negatives. The pandemic done that. It gave you a lot of time to work on
I think
stuff.
People realised people, it always annoyed people when people saw my stuff and they say, "Oh, I couldn't do that. I've got no imagination." I said, "What do you mean? Everybody's got an imagination." That's anybody can do. Anybody can paint, anybody can draw, and anybody can make something unique.